Today we're going to talk about the largest ticking time bomb in all of cryptocurrencies, and that is Tether. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar, Tether is just a cryptocurrency that is supposed to be pegged to the US dollar in a 1-to-1 ratio. And there's been a lot of speculation over the past couple of months that Tether really isn't backed by anything. Or if it is backed by anything, it's fractional reserves rather than 100% backed by the US dollar as they advertise. Now, Tether kind of fell out of the news cycle for a while here. Nobody's really talked about it since the hack back in November for, I believe it was $30 million. It's been a while now, but really nobody's talked about Tether since then, and some people on this channel don't know that I've made previous videos talking about Tether. I think it's a complete ripoff. I think it's a complete scam, and even if it's not a scam, and I've said this a few times, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if this is 100% legitimate, because eventually the US government is going to get tired of this as it gets larger and larger, and they're going to shut it down. Plain and simple. They're going to put every effort of their manpower into making sure that this can no longer operate, because guess what it's trying to do? It's trying to bypass regulations by using a cryptocurrency rather than the US dollar itself. The reality of the situation is, though, you can't do that. All right. Eventually, the governments are going to catch up with this. So even if it isn't a scam, eventually, once it grows to a certain size, we will see the U.S. government or some other government try to go after it, because it is, in fact, only trying to bypass certain regulations. So there's my opinion on it. But it really does look like a scam. A lot of people are now talking about it again because of the fact that their relationship with their auditor has dissolved. And a lot of people are speculating that, that usually only happens when you don't like what the auditor has to say. And I agree with them. I think that's probably the case here. What's likely happened is that they had something to say that was closer to the truth. Tether isn't comfortable with it. They don't like the idea of that being revealed. And so they decided to terminate their relationship. And as a result of that, people are again talking about Tether, talking about the idea that Tether are being printed in order to pump cryptocurrency prices. This is really all coming off of the back of the theories made by Bitfinex, but not Bitfinex, Bitfinex, for those of you that are unfamiliar with him. Important that you add that D at the end, because otherwise you're talking about an entirely different entity. He's really mocking Bitfinex, and he's also mocking Tether, because he feels that both of them are complete ripoffs. They allow, Bitfinex allows wash trading and all sorts of other sketchy activity. I recommend that you follow him, although it's a lot of effort to keep up with all the stuff he posts. But he's very on top of these sorts of things, and a lot of people are sort of parroting what he has to say, and that makes sense because he seems to be fairly knowledgeable on this. But all I'm going to say is, while you should look at what he has to say, you really don't need to, because I'm just going to tell you this simple fact. If it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, acts like a duck, and quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck. And the same situation is true here for Tether. If it looks like a scam, acts like a scam, quacks like a scam, then it probably is a scam. Seriously. I mean, if you look at this over the course of the past year, right, and you look at how much Tether has grown in terms of market cap. I don't want you to look at price. I don't want you to look at the value against Bitcoin. Both of those are completely worthless pieces of information. I just want you to look at market cap. How it's gone from 15 million all the way up to currently $2.2 billion. And just in the month of January, they have printed $850 million worth of Tether. $850 million. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. They have had problems with their banking for quite some time. If you assume that they have those problems with banking, they have those problems with regulations, you think about all of the bad press that we see about Tether. Do you really think it's all that likely that people want to deposit their US dollar for Tether? Do you really think it's backed by anything? And the reality of the situation is no, it's not. I mean, you don't have to be an investigator like Bitfinex to realize this. You did back in the day, but at this point, it's so large and so obvious and blatant that they're trying to rip people off that if you're still using Tether, stop. Stop using Tether. I mean, the only reason to use Tether is because it's a safe place to store your money. It's not. It's not. Okay? I may not be correct on the timeline as to when Tether finally collapse. All I know is that it eventually will, and you seriously do not want to have your money in Tether when it happens. Period. Okay? Even if you're one of those people that only uses Tether for 5 minutes at a time, it's too risky. It really is, at least in my opinion. I would rather put my money in a volatile asset like Bitcoin and wait for it to get moved over to an exchange that I can exchange for fiat rather than move it into Tether. In other words, like for example, if I'm on Bittrex, then I'm not going to exchange Ethereum, for example, for Tether. I'm going to move that Ethereum over into GDAX and then I will sell it for the US dollar. I will accept that there's that slow, that slight disconnect, right? Because of the fact I have to transfer the ether. I will accept that risk, that timing risk, rather than put myself in Tether, which is, in my opinion, a complete, like I said, ticking time bomb that will eventually blow up and take down a lot of the market with it. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. And it's in all of these different exchanges, even ones that I recommend. Bittrex, for example, is an exchange that I use frequently, and it's disappointing to me to see them use Tether. If you're an exchange at this point, not that anybody that represents any exchanges listens to these videos, but please stop accepting Tether. Please stop using it. Take it off of your platform. Figure out another way. Seriously, okay? Or maybe just accept the fact that making stable cryptocurrencies may not be possible at this point in time. I mean, the field is far too volatile. I'm amazed that Tether has stayed this close to $1, despite the fact that so much is going on to suggest that it's not worth anything at all. And, well, that's not true. It's worth something, but, well, maybe not. It depends. If they take the money and run, then yeah, it's actually worth absolutely nothing. So, if you are using Tether, please stop. If you aren't using Tether, then keep a close eye on it because it's going to affect the rest of the market. Remember here that one of the biggest theories that's running around is how interconnected Tether and Bitfinex is. And given that Bitfinex is practically, they are one of the largest exchanges in the world, if not the largest, then we are in a situation here where if Tether goes down, we need to be concerned about what happens to the entire market because Bitfinex is, in my opinion, one of the next Mt. Goxes. Seriously. It's one of those types of events that could happen. And if you watch my big video, probably the biggest one, no, not probably, the biggest video on this channel where I talk about how the Bitcoin bubble could pop, Bitfinex turning out to be Mt. Gox is by far the highest chance, or one of the, not the highest chance, but really one of the highest impact events that could cause that to happen. Especially when you consider the fact Mt. Gox fell because of negligence. This would be because of maliciousness or because of malintent. And that's a totally different story, and that would result in increased regulations and a number of other things coming into the field that are a huge concern. So I just want to say for anybody that, again, is getting involved with Tether, please don't. When they print money this rapidly, this is just absurd. It's complete insanity. If you've seen Tether try to defend themselves against Bitfinex, for example, it's pretty obvious it's being run by immature people that don't know what they're doing. Again, you don't have to be an investigator to see that this is a scam. So many people are blinded by the idea that you need 100% evidence for you to be certain about something, and you simply don't. All right? There are enough times, like I said, where if it seems like it's true, or if it seems too good to be true, which I really think that a stable currency probably is at this point for a number of reasons, but especially one that's backed directly by US dollars, if it just looks like it's a scam, it probably is. And that's really my summary for this entire video. So please, don't be one of the people that's using Tether. Don't be one of the people that's supporting this volume that we see in all of these different markets using it, because I understand that you don't know exactly when this is going to collapse, and you like the idea of being able to cash out to something that's a little bit more stable. I get that when markets become volatile, you don't want to wait for that slight delay until you can get onto an exchange where you can actually cash out for real US dollars. I get not wanting to wait for that delay. I also get for those of you that don't want to, use your real identity on exchanges. Maybe you're only using exchanges that don't comply with KYC and AML. But even in those situations, I think you have to accept that the cost of doing business on those exchanges is that you're not going to have all the conveniences that you would on an exchange that does comply with those regulations, and you're not going to be as safe, plain and simple, right? You get into nowhere land or the Wild West, then you are putting yourself at more risk. So don't use Tether. Don't support this type of behavior. This is one of the biggest scams that's going on in the space. I can't predict what's going to happen when it finally collapses. I don't know what that's going to do to Bitcoin's price. I don't know what that's going to do to the price of altcoins. All I know is that everything in this market, if there's one element that has the most systemic and systematic risk, both things, if there's one thing that has the most of both of those, it's Tether and Bitfinex by far. So watch this situation very closely, see how the communications play out, see how people are starting to feel about Tether. I'd be really interested to see if this value declines further than this. I mean, this is a standard fluctuation for Tether. We've seen it come down below $1, several times. I'd really only start to get interested in this US dollar level once it starts getting to like 90 cents. If it gets to 90 cents again, then you can start being really concerned, because at that point, it might seem that the perception for Tether is going away. But that said, it's already been away for quite some time, and I think there are a number of arbitrageurs who are really trying to move this price back up to $1, even though it doesn't make a ton of sense. But just watch it closely. That's all I'm going to say, because this is by far the most risky element in this entire market. And we may not know when it's going to blow up. All we know is that it is going to blow up at some point in the future. At least that's my speculation. As usual, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you check out my Steemit. I tend to be a little bit more interactive there. Sorry that I haven't been around all that much the last few days. I've been busy remodeling my work area because the office in which I work in is kind of really bad for recording videos. The acoustics are awful, and it's cramped. It's just inconvenient, and this is becoming a much more serious venture, so I want my workspace to reflect that. So I've been doing a little bit of remodeling and moving things around. I want to build a new desk, build a new computer, get a whole new setup, get dual monitors, so on and so forth, just to make things a little bit easier for me and quicker, more efficient. So for the meanwhile, it's going to be a little bit slower maybe on the frequency of the uploads. Depends on whether or when I can find time. And also I'm going to have to take apart the whole setup that I have now. So again, I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that, but I guess we'll see. So that's why I haven't been around as frequently. I'm going to try starting to post on Twitter a little bit more, maybe like once a day or something like that, just so that you guys can kind of feel like I'm not completely gone from social media altogether. But just wanted to provide that quick update for those of you who have been around and wondering where I am, especially because the frequency of my content was supposed to increase this year. I'm working on just redoing the office space here, so it's a little bit more convenient for me to work in. So hope you guys can be patient with me on that. And as usual, make sure that you leave a like, comment, and subscription. Hit the bell icon, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Stay away from Tether.